Hello, everyone, and this week we are talking about life coaching, mental health wellness, and how that revolves around any type of journey in life that you're going through, whether it's fitness, life-changing journeys, career-changing journeys, whatever it may be. And we are talking to Theresa Tyler this week, and she is a life coach for ambitious women. But men, if you are ambitious as well, you might want to listen to this good as well, because there's so many gems in this episode. So let's get started. All right, everyone. Today we have Theresa here, and she is a woman of all trades, as I've learned from her website. So I'm going to let her explain to you guys exactly what she does, but we're going to find out who she is, where she's from, and what she currently does. So go ahead, Theresa.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I am Theresa Tyler. I am a relationship coach with Love and Ambition, and I help ambitious women transform their relationships from the inside out. So that means I work with the way that they think about love and about connection, so that they can create more fulfillment in their relationships. Um, about me personally, I am a foreign service wife. So my husband is a foreign service officer. We bounce around the world, sometimes about around the country when we're in the United States. And I am also a former attorney. Excuse me. So I've worn quite a few different hats. um, right now, we're actually living in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So that's where I'm
Oh,
recording.
really?
Yeah, yeah. So we've been here for the last, I think, 7 months now. We moved obviously during the pandemic, and it was a nightmare. But
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how was it moving in the middle of a pandemic in a different country? Oh my God.
it was it was super rough. Like nothing went the way that it's supposed to go. I mean, there are all of these like procedures in place because we do the foreign service does this all the time. We bounce around all of the time, and
Uh-huh.
usually it's pretty smooth. But I mean, when you have offices closed, when you have people working from home, and when you just don't have the same support, oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. Plus, we have a dog, and he's in the back sleeping. You can see a corner of him over there sleeping. So he had to get on a 10-hour flight, and it
Oh.
was so scared, but he made it.
Oh. That's pretty cool though.
Yeah. But we're originally from Florida.
Okay.
So, yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool to just move around the country.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's always hard to go somewhere and kind of start over and make
Yeah.
new connections, and it sucks to leave that behind. But I love the adventure. I love seeing new things. I love meeting new people. I love expanding my horizons. So I mean, it works.
Okay. That's pretty cool. So since you're a coach, a relationship coach, I'm pretty sure that your past has caused you to take that path. So if you want to just share with our listeners and watchers what exactly turned you to being a relationship coach.
Okay. Um, so I'm kind of a complicated person, and I'm going to
Aren't we? We're all a little complicated, so you're okay. Welcome
true,
to the
true,
club.
true. But I'll focus on what have been the biggest influences for me in becoming a relationship coach.
Okay.
And I know that your thing is fitness and wellness.
Yeah.
And my biggest fitness and wellness challenge was always managing how I felt because I struggled with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And actually runs in my family. So from a child, I was dealing with a lot of depression. Um, I'm also biracial, and I was raised by my mom, who's white, and I really only had connection with the white side of my family. So I also grew up with this kind of sense of not quite belonging, not quite knowing who I was. And when you're depressed and having all of that stuff going on, and then you have this kind of, my family doesn't exactly get what it's like to be, obviously, they don't get what it's like to be Black.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like another layer of emotional stuff that I wasn't prepared to deal with as a child or even as a young adult. And even now, it's still a challenge. It still creates challenges for me. Anyway, all of those things kind of going on. I was just really, really depressed sometimes, and other times I would be fine. It was definitely like a cycle. I would have phases where, yeah, it wasn't a problem. Then I would have phases where I was just like crushed. I was almost non-functional because I was just so depressed. I didn't want to get out of bed. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating right or sleeping or any of that, which I think you can relate to. But I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
doing, yeah, I wasn't doing anything that I was supposed to do, and it's horrible. And I would get really, really dark. And if I didn't change that, honestly, I'm not sure that I would be here. That's just how serious, my depression was for me. So I've seen tons of professionals over the years. I've worked with psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, coaches, and really what it came down to for me, the thing that stuck was just doing the work that I do now with love and ambition. It was changing how I think and taking responsibility for my feelings. But to do that, it was a complete lifestyle change. It wasn't just think happy thoughts. It wasn't just tweak a couple things. It was a complete and total lifestyle change. It was practicing mindfulness. It was being aware of how I'm thinking and how I'm feeling. It was completely owning that. No one else can make me happy. No one else can make me feel loved. That stuff has to come from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
That also means feeling my feelings, which they say all the time, and it doesn't really mean anything until you start doing it. But instead of avoiding my feelings with TV or social media or working too much, it's I feel like crap, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to experience feeling like crap until I'm able to tolerate it, and still be able to function and be okay because feelings are going to happen. I can't
Mm-hmm.
avoid them.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course there's the habits. There's the self-care, there's the boundaries. So I mean, as you can see, it's just a huge lifestyle change that
Yeah.
has to happen. And it really is a lifestyle. It's not just I'm gonna do this today, or I'm gonna do this week. It's like, no, I'm gonna completely live differently because I want to feel differently. Um, that also meant, in my case, changing my career because I wasn't getting anything out of being an attorney. And honestly, it's something that I chose because it was safe, it was acceptable, it's what
I
made
trust
other
me. I
people
understand.
happy. Yeah, so it's like part of my managing my how I feel, part of managing my depression, part of my whole journey was doing love and ambition, was creating this world where I was doing coaching and relationship coaching specifically because my depression affected my marriage, my depression affected my friendships, and my depression plus being biracial created huge challenges with my family and relating to my family. And a lot of the work that I did there it taught me so much about the overlap between how I feel about myself versus how I can relate to others and how I can create good relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just something that I wanted to share with people. That's something that no matter who you are or what you've been through, relationships are hard. We can all relate to struggling to have healthy relationships, and we can all relate to struggling to feel good about ourselves just on a regular basis. And that's just what I want to do with Love and Ambition. I want to reach women that have these same kind of stories and experiences that I've had, and I want to be part of the conversation on mental wellness.
Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome because personally, for myself, I've been suffering from depression, anxiety, and body dysmorphia since I was
Mm,
16 years old. So, and it's
yeah.
still a struggle, and I'm almost 30. So it's still a struggle every day. And then when you mention, you having a career where it's safe and, you're getting kind of what you want out of it. I'm in law enforcement, so it's not really safe because I'm out on injury right now, but but it's safe because I have benefits. I have a pension. I have health insurance that's out of this world. I get a raise every year. Like I get overtime. Like I don't really have to work hard for anything. But in the same sense, being home, I'm learning that I'm not really happy with my career choice. So I 100%, understand where you're coming from. And then with relationships with your family and them dealing with this mental health uh, illness through generations and through genetics and stuff. We found out that my brother a few years ago has bipolar and we had no idea, and I have depression and anxiety. So obviously this is running in the family, but no one's paying attention to it. But then this also goes to me opening up the Pandora box when it comes to, sorry if I'm offending anybody, but to African American families who don't really believe that mental illness is a big issue within the Black culture, because the first thing that they like to say is just go pray it away. And that's what I was kind of taught, but that kind of pushed me off of religion. And it goes with a lot. So I totally understand where you're coming from in your story, because Black folk, not just Black folk, but in general, we downplay mental illness and don't think that it's very important as it should be. So it's very interesting. Even though you say you grew up in a mostly, with your mother who's white, and you didn't really have, the connections with your black family, who is your father, it still runs, no matter who you are. And it just shows, how there's a disconnect, and seeing that this is an issue that needs to be fixed as soon as possible. So that way, those skills once you get older and how to deal with it. Because like you said, you have your periods when you're up, you have your periods when you're down. I had a depressive state, I guess they call it like a manic depressive state, whatever, for probably 4 5 months last year. So I understand totally where you're coming from. So it's a lot to deal with, and it feels good when you actually use what you've been through to actually help other people to get through what you've been through, showing what you've learned. And you also learn other stuff, because like I've been on medication just like you. I've been to psychologists and going to church and doing this, doing that, doing that, doing that. And then it wasn't until probably a few years ago where I actually took it in control for myself and actually understood how to deal with it. Because other people try to tell you what to do, but it's ultimately what you think that you need to do, whatever works for you. So I totally get it. 100%. So what's the number one thing? Because I know you mentioned a few things, recognizing that what's best for you, and doing what helps you the most, even if you're been to several professionals in regards to mental health. What is your biggest tip that you give ambitious women for having a healthy relationship for themselves and others?
So let's see. The biggest tip, um, I think that it's just giving your relationship that same attention that you give your physical health, that you give other areas of health. For some reason, we tend to overlook that. We don't really think about the way that we talk to ourselves in our head. We don't think about whether we are giving ourselves good boundaries for our mental health. We get wrapped up in life, and it's easy to ignore those things. It's always easy to just ignore those things, and I think that if you put it in the perspective of the same way that I would go and exercise, or the same way that I would make sure I take a walk every day, the same way that I would do those things, I am going to take a step that is towards my own self-care. I'm going to take a step that reminds me to love myself. I'm going to wake up in the morning and say, I love you. You're beautiful. I'm going to talk kindly to myself. Like those same habits that you have in place for your nutrition and for your exercise, you have to have those things in place for the way that you relate to yourself.
Yeah. Because when I was in therapy a couple years ago, my therapist, she brought out one thing that stuck with me since I've stopped seeing her is, why would you talk to yourself that way when you don't allow others to talk to you that way?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Yeah.
it makes sense. So yeah, that's a really good tip.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the most underrated thing that people don't do for self-love or healthy relationships? The most underrated.
The most underrated thing, I think it, I think it kind of relates to what I just said. um, about having this idea of mental fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in the fitness world, they talk about determination and discipline and being persistent, because those things relate so much to physical fitness. But we don't talk about a training regimen for the mind. Like our brains have to be trained. When you want your brain to do something new, you have to practice, you have to train it. So if you want to be a mentally fit person, you have to practice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be mindful. You have to set time each day to be mindful in the things that you're doing. You have to develop emotional resilience. You do that by feeling your feelings. You do that by consistently not running from how you're feeling. You have to cultivate creativity and optimism for the future. But all of that it's like a training regimen. It's the same idea of training your body. But because I guess you don't see the outward results like you see when you
Mm-hmm.
exercise, people are less likely to do that. You don't really see your brain changing until you start paying attention to your thoughts and your feelings. But if you don't do it, then you're more susceptible to stress. You get less fulfillment out of life. It's harder to cope with challenges. I mean, we've been in this pandemic and people are literally going crazy
Yeah.
because this is so different. And if you don't have that mental fitness in place, then your sanity goes out the window and it's just so hard to survive. And I
Yeah.
just think that we don't talk about it outside of like determination and discipline. We just don't talk about a regular training regimen for your brain.
Yeah. In regards to the pandemic, have you seen, yeah, I know even though people are tight with money lately these days, but have you seen like a slight uptick in people reaching out for help from you?
Yeah, I definitely think so. It's so having so much time in the home with your loved ones can create a lot more friction.
Yeah.
And, part of the work that I do is changing the way that you think, but the other part of the work that I do is working on basic relationship skills, working on how to communicate and trust and intimacy and conflict resolution. And there's been so many more arguments now. I mean, just couples arguing a lot more or not
Mm-hmm.
getting along because you're just constantly together, you're bumping heads. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of looking at your face. And then and our lives have changed. You're not doing the activities that you used to do that would help you stay sane. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you weren't paying attention to your thoughts before, you're almost trapped with them now. You're stuck with them now. You have to face them. And if you're not used to facing them, then it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So definitely the pandemic is definitely more people are in need of help. I think that not everyone who needs help is reaching out because it's still kind of it's not a comfortable thing to say like I'm struggling with these thoughts. I'm struggling with just existing with myself every day because I feel so horrible. Like it's really hard to reach out and talk about those things. And you touched on the stigma. I mean, there's still such a stigma around it. Even if it's just coaching, there's still like this stigma around it. For some reason, anytime we ask for help, it's seen as a bad thing, and it shouldn't be. It should
Mm-hmm.
be a strong thing. Like you recognize that something is going wrong and you're trying to fix it. Like that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for
Especially,
some
yeah.
reason, that's society looks down on that.
Yeah, seriously, especially when you're in the military and so is your husband, and then I'm in law enforcement. There is definitely in our world that big stigma with mental health because we have the resources, but then when we go reach out, we don't want to seem weak, and then when people find out that we reach out for help, people look at us different. They don't want to say certain stuff around us. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely believe that the stigma needs to be broken because there's nothing wrong with not being okay with yourself. There's
Right,
there's nothing wrong with that. So,
right.
yeah.
Well, everyone goes through it on some level.
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone has those moments.
yeah,
Whether if you don't want to use a label, you don't want to say I'm depressed or I'm having anxiety. If you don't want to say that, that's fine. But everyone struggles with things. Everyone has experiences where they they just can't get through it on their own without having some horrible scar that messes them up. Like that. That's life. Like you're gonna go through things and you're gonna need help once in a while.
yeah.
That's what makes us human.
Yeah, and then you want to reach out to your friends and family, but they kind of already know you, so they're not going to give you what you really need to hear. So I always tell people, it's always good to go find someone who's you don't know or like a
Right.
neutral party because then they
Right.
don't know too much about you. They don't know too much about your family or your friends or anything like that. So there's not really no judge. There's no reason why that person should judge you. So they
Mhm.
will tell you, what they think the best advice that you probably can get is from someone you don't know.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. What is the most overrated thing in the realm of, mental health world, building healthy relationships? What do you think is like the overrated thing?
I would say, and I'm going to have to explain this answer.
Oh, God.
I would say happiness.
Okay, I agree.
Thinking, okay, good. So I would say like treating happiness as the goal or equating happiness to mental wellness. I think that's just so overrated and I don't think it's accurate. So I think there's kind of two dangers to it. First, if happiness is the goal, then you're not going to do hard things. You're not going to reach for bigger goals and do those things that are important to you
You'll be
because
okay with just being in
exactly
the middle. As long
right.
as
You'll
everything
just
is
exist.
okay, that's fine for you. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Because I mean, you think about like what me and you are doing now. Like this is hard.
Yeah.
Trying to get this coaching thing going
Yeah.
and stepping out on your own, it's hard. And you're not always happy. Sometimes you're stressed, sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're doubting yourself. But I mean, that's part of the process. And it's like, no, I'm not happy today, but I'm doing this thing that is really important to me. And there's power in that. There is power in stepping out and doing this thing that you really want to do, even though some days you're not happy about it. If happiness is your only goal, then you miss out on all of those
Yeah.
opportunities. And then, as far as happiness being a sign of mental wellness, I just don't think that's true. I think that mental wellness is about finding peace with those unhappy feelings. So some days I wake up and I'm sad and I'm angry, but I'm okay with that. It's like, okay, you know what? I can have this uncomfortable feeling and I can still function. Excuse me. I can still do hard things. I can still work towards my goals. I can still manage my relationships. I can still be me, even though I have this uncomfortable feeling. And
Mm.
I think that level of peace, it helps you not suffer so much. And I just think that's a huge sign of what mental wellness really is. It's about the whole spectrum of emotion, not just happiness.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. So I understand that because people think that if you're happy, then you'll have the perfect life, everything will come to you and all this other stuff. And that's not it's not true. Just like how people
Yeah,
equate wealth to health, happiness. That's not true either. So the
no.
happiness is really happiness within yourself, being
Hmm.
okay with yourself. That's the,
Yeah,
the most important goal of life, to be honest. Who cares what other
yeah.
people think sometimes, you know? So,
It is. when it comes to relationships, many people come into the idea that this person is supposed to make me happy. And I hate that saying. I know it's just a thing that we say, but it sets an expectation that's not true. No one else can make you happy. When I was depressed, my husband could not make me happy. There was nothing that he could do that made me happy because I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't happy on the inside. And I used to have that expectation. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a a more unfair burden to put on another person than to expect for them to make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's impossible.
Yeah, because
And
you're
it
making
causes so
them,
many
yeah, you're
problems.
trying to make them like a mind reader when they're not.
Right, right, right. It's impossible. Like you have to do that work on your own, and then you have to continue that work. And then you get into your relationship and you enjoy that time with the person, you enjoy that connection with that person, but it's not with this expectation that they make you happy. It's just like, hey, I love this person and
Mm-hmm.
we're having this amazing life together, but I am responsible for my happiness and my partner is responsible for their
Yeah, I agree. You're each accountable for your own happiness.
happiness.
And then if you're both happy, then that's a great relationship. So,
Yeah,
but
right.
I know this is not one of the questions, but I was sitting here thinking about it. So, besides, having a healthy relationship with yourself, having a healthy relationship with others is just as important. And I know a lot of people are in, I guess we're going to use this word, but I don't really like this word, in toxic relationships, whether it's with friends, family, peers, whatever. And
Mhm.
when people point that out to them, they're very hesitant to get out of those relationships. And sometimes the best thing to do is to either distance yourself from that person or just cut them off. To get them
Right.
out. What piece of advice would you have for anyone who is in a situation who, because I know a lot of people in like the fitness and wellness journey, they have people in their family who wants to continue to have an unhealthy relationship with food, or they have people who aren't supportive of their journey, and they don't want to completely cut them off because they love them, their family. You're not supposed to do that to family, or we've been friends since we're 7, all this other stuff. So what kind of advice would you give to that person who is in an unhealthy relationship, who is either scared to cut them off or take a few steps back, or they're scared to have a conversation with that person? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Okay. It always depends on the situation,
Of
but
course.
um, if it's a toxic relationship that I'm not going to say that you can get rid of because I think that really any relationship you can choose to walk away from it. But I would say that if you want to maintain some level of the relationship, then you need to have very strong, solid boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a position where you are feel like you cannot voice your needs in that relationship, then you probably need to have someone help you to set those boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries they take a lot of courage, and boundaries come from a sense of loving yourself. And if you're unable to kind of communicate what's going on already, then you would probably benefit from having a coach or a therapist or someone that can work on those deeper issues
Mm-hmm.
that are causing you to feel uncomfortable with voicing how you feel. Because any relationship where you're not able to voice your opinion is a problem. Like communication is everything in relationships, all types of relationships, family, friends, marriage, whatever. Like if you are afraid to express yourself, then there's something in that relationship that is going wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
there's something there that you have to investigate. Otherwise, you really can't change anything. If you don't have a voice, you can't change anything. I mean, that's just the truth behind it. And you have to get those boundaries in place, and getting those boundaries in place may really take, talking to a professional over time and working through whatever is causing that fear in that relationship. But you definitely have to set those boundaries because you matter as well. Your goals matter, your needs matter, the things that you're trying to do with your life, they matter. And if you have this relationship that is destroying that for you because it's so toxic. It's just going to drag you down. You have to set those boundaries, and you have to be willing to follow through with the consequences. Boundaries have consequences when they're crossed, and it's not a threat. It's not like I'm going to hurt you if you do these things. It's like if you cross this boundary, I'm going to do what I need to do to care for myself. That's the difference between a boundary and a threat. The consequence is not about hurting the other person. The consequence is about protecting yourself, because that's what boundaries do. They protect your health and your sanity. So you have to set those boundaries. You have to enforce those boundaries, and you have to kind of be okay with the feelings that come from it, because you may hurt some feelings. and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's going to be uncomfortable to hurt feelings. But I mean, that's what has to be done. Healthy relationships, they have boundaries, all of them. That's part of a healthy relationship. They have boundaries, they have communication, and you have a voice in that situation, just like the other person has a voice in that relationship.
Pretty sure you're into your physical health as well. So, and it's not on the list of questions. This is new. So, what is your go-to workout song?
My go-to workout song. um, I don't know if I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have like a one song that I listen to. I kind of this is embarrassing. Um, I have this one song. It's like don't you think I'm sexy? It's like, have you heard that song? It's
I
like
probably have.
it's super embarrassing. I should probably look it up for you. Yeah, Rod Stewart, do you think I'm sexy? Have
Okay.
you heard that? But yeah, that's kind of my, I don't know, like it makes me laugh.
It's a feel-good
And
song.
I don't know if it necessarily like gets me pumped up when I'm in the middle of a workout, but like if I'm struggling, like, oh, I don't want to do this, then I put that song on and I feel stupid. And I feel like moving my body in stupid ways. And it just kind of like gets my mind out of like, and I don't want to do this mindset into a why not? Let's just do it mindset.
It's a
So yeah.
feel-good song. We're just gonna go with that. It's a feel-good song. Okay. And lastly, if anybody who's watching or listening would like to get in contact with you or interested in your services, how would they get in contact with you?
Okay, so the website is www.loveinambition.com. So that's LOVEINAMBITION.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook with the handle at Love in Ambition. If anyone wants to send me an email, my email is Theresa with an H, so THERESA at loveinambition.com.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that our listeners found this as useful as well. And I'll see everyone next week for our next guest. Hey everyone, it's Chanel, and that is the end of this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed it, please, 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 it would be awesome if you take a few seconds out of your time to leave a comment, leave a like or a love, or subscribe, because we are available worldwide, and I would love to hear you guys' feedback, see what you like, see what you didn't like, who I should interview next. I would love to hear back from you guys. Or if you want to watch the full video, please visit us on YouTube for the Fit to Eat Nutrition Personal Development YouTube page. So I hope you guys carry whatever advice you take from this episode throughout the week, and have a great week.